Hi, students, and welcome to today's lesson. I'm Ms. Albina. Today, we will continue to explore the question, how can we help monarchs survive in a changing environment? Are you ready? Grab your pencil and your science journal, and let's get started.
Life isn't always easy for a monarch butterfly. In the fall, it has to journey hundreds of miles south through the United States to Mexico. Finally, it reaches the forest, where it will spend the winter. Only to find that many of the trees have been cut down. How will it find shelter to survive the winter? And even if it does survive the winter, the butterfly's return journey may not be any easier. As it travels north, it seeks milkweed, where it can lay its eggs. But farmers have sprayed herbicides on the milkweed, and much of it is gone. What can this butterfly do? In our last lesson, we identified three major threats to monarch butterflies: deforestation, or cutting down trees, development by humans, and loss of milkweed due to herbicides. After our last lesson, your task was to identify what these three threats have in common. Did you say that they all lead to a loss of habitat for the monarchs? Well, that is exactly what all of these three threats do. They reduce the habitat available to monarch butterflies. Now, imagine you are an engineer. Your job is to design a solution to one of the problems monarchs face. You need to make a detailed plan for your solution. Where should you start? I have an idea. Let's use the engineering design process to design a solution. In our last lesson, we began the ask stage of the engineering design process. Let's continue that stage now. It's time to define the problem. In this lesson, we will find a way to help the monarch butterflies. I will focus on the larger problem that the number of monarch butterflies is decreasing because of habitat loss. However, if you're completing this project on your own, you're free to pick one of the threats that contributes to habitat loss: deforestation, development, or loss of milkweed. You're also welcome to work with me on the same problem. The ask stage is also the stage in which we identify the criteria and constraints. Remember, criteria are the requirements, or what is needed to solve the problem. Constraints are the limitations we face in solving the problem. As you define your criteria and constraints, consider these questions. What must the solution accomplish? Well, the solution must help monarch butterflies survive changes in the environment. The solution should give butterflies what they need to survive, such as food, water, and protection. How will we know whether the solution is successful? And what else do you need to consider as you design your solution? We discussed that our solution must help monarchs survive changes in the environment. What else does our solution need to do? Well, besides the criteria, we also need to identify the constraints. So what else do you need to consider as you design your solution? At what time of year does your solution need to work? And where must you build your solution? What must you consider about materials, cost, and time? If we can answer these questions, we'll know many of our constraints. It would be so much fun to follow migrating monarchs across the country. We could work with communities along the way to protect the monarchs. Unfortunately, one of our constraints is that we can't travel to test our solution. So let's think about how we can use a model to design a solution that will help monarch butterflies survive. How can we create a small-scale model of a solution that will keep the butterflies safe? Even though we can't travel along the butterfly's migration path, we must design our plan to be implemented along their migration path. What other constraints can you think of? After this lesson, you will complete the ask stage of the engineering design process, where you will define the problem you want to solve and then identify criteria and constraints. After the ask stage of the engineering design process is the imagine stage. Close your eyes and brainstorm with me for a moment. Can you think of any solutions for the problems monarchs face? Maybe we could plant new trees in the forest where the monarchs spend their winter. Or maybe we could find another kind of weed killer that doesn't kill milkweed. After this lesson, you will record possible design solutions and answer questions about the solution you think will work best. Oh, I thought of a possible solution. We could design a butterfly garden. I like that plan. Let's look at some butterfly gardens from around the world. Maybe those gardens will give us some good ideas. These are photographs of butterfly gardens. What do the gardens have in common? What differences do you see? Do you notice that they all have a lot of plants, especially flowers? We know butterflies sip nectar from flowers. And do you remember which plant monarch caterpillars eat? Well, they eat milkweed. We should definitely include milkweed plants in our butterfly garden plan. I noticed that some of the gardens have trees. One garden even has a source of water. Which ideas do you think are most important to include in your butterfly garden design? Can you design a butterfly garden that includes those ideas? Now that we've decided on a solution, we'll move on to the plan stage. In this stage, you'll generate a detailed design and gather materials. Even though we will not build our solutions, we should still consider what materials we would need. Your detailed design for the butterfly garden should include a clear design sketch, a descriptive title, materials for the design solution, and specific measurements for any parts of your design that must be a certain size. You can use the butterfly gardens we saw today as inspiration. However, you should design your garden in whatever way you believe will work best to help monarchs survive in a changing environment. After this lesson, you'll create an initial diagram of your garden and list the materials you would need to build it. Remember, in the engineering design process, we can move from one stage to another. So even though we can't create or improve our butterfly garden designs together, we can still share them. If you love your design, consider writing a letter to someone in your community to share your ideas. You can also share your plan with family members or a friend. Let's review your task for today. Complete the ask, imagine, and plan stages of the engineering design process.